Okay, so once again, if you're not familiar, when I do the comic book stuff or the sort of geeky media stuff, I tend to just give my overall thoughts on the film early on, and then have a really big spoiler section. So that's what's going to happen again. I'll give my overall thoughts. I'll have a break, and then there'll be a big spoiler section. So if you don't want to see that stuff, that's fine. Just skip ahead to the next break, and then we'll talk about trailers, because there are actual trailers to talk about now. I finally got to the movie theater, so for the first time in 17 months. So, yeah, this is kind of I don't know if big deal is the exact terminology, but it felt kind of big to get it out of the way finally. So, anyway, my overall thoughts on Black Widow is I'm going to give it a B. I think there's some decent stuff here. The cast chemistry is really good, decent performances. Really good fight choreography during the action sequences. Unfortunately, the pacing of the film is kind of clunky at times. There's a way too drawn out opening sequence. There's a couple of way too drawn out fight scenes, and the villains themselves are a little underdeveloped. They're just not featured enough to have the gravitas that villains should really have in these types of pieces. They're not necessarily bad villains. They're just, again, underdeveloped and not as pronounced as they really should be. Still, though, like I said, the cast chemistry and some of the storylines explored are rather intriguing, and it does have a unique point at the end, which I'll get to in the spoiler section. So yeah, that's why I'm giving Black Widow a B.
Superhero mashers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cap rides a cycle in, which makes the bad guys frown. He clicks in Falcon's wings and he waves them up and down. A super duper villain trying to take over the town. That's what it's all about. Goblins destroying stuff. Venom wants his share. He's using Dark and they're flashing everywhere. When heroes come together, evildoers best beware. That's what it's all about.
Now there are even more ways to make your ultimate mashup.
That's what it's all about.
Marvel Superhero Mashers.
Okay, so I guess the really weird part with Black Widow is that it's technically part of Phase 4 of the Marvel Universe, but really it isn't. It's still part of like Phase 3, because this takes place in between Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War. So we get a couple of setups to that. Well, not so much setups, but we get some references to that. Basically, it's the fallout of the fact that Natasha leaked her confidential filings, and, she's turned against S.H.I.E.L.D., so she's going on the run. She hides out in Norway for a while, and as this is happening, we get... we open up, actually, with some flashbacks. And this is where I have that problem with the drawn-out sequence. It's not a bad flashback. We basically see two girls who are Natasha and Yelena Belova, and then their mother Melina, who's not their mother, and their father Alexei, aka the Red Guardian, and they're part of a sleeper cell in Ohio that are going after a S.H.I.E.L.D. base, which is actually a front for a Hydra base, to steal some information that's kept on a floppy disk. And they kind of get the orders to, hey, it's time to clear out, we have to go. There's a shootout with the police. Melina is injured, and basically Natasha has to fly a plane to Cuba so they can meet up with Dreykov, who's the leader of the Red Room. And once Natasha and Elena realize they're going back there, they're upset and they don't want to go, but Alexei basically, comforts them to allow them to be sedated so they can leave, and then we kind of get this big montage for the opening credits, and it just goes on and on and on. We basically get, I would almost say it was condensed, but like I said, it's so drawn out that it can't be, to refer to it as condensed doesn't make much sense. Yeah, basically, Natasha was found on the streets by the Red Room. Yelena kind of happened to be with her at that time. They were targeted and, brought in, and we see sort of a lot of the torture and stuff they had to go through for their training, the ballet stuff, the fighting, the forced sterilization, and we all obviously see the graphic details, but this is all set to this weird melodic rendition of Smells Like Teen Spirit from Nirvana, and it just keeps going. It's like, okay, we get the point, get back to the film. Get back to the film. Like, we didn't really, all this has already kind of been explained. We didn't need it all explained again. And again, that was sort of the problem. Anyway, as this is happening, like I said, Natasha is trying to lay low in Norway for a while off the grid as best as she can, though she knows at some point S.H.I.E.L.D.'s going to come back after her, and with Thunderbolt Ross now being in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. At this point. Like I said, this is still dealing with that whole Sokovia Accords thing. And as that is happening, we see Yelena working with the Red Room, and she's going after this target who hits her with this gas that kind of clears her of her Red Room programming, and it sort of frees her, and now she has to go on the run, and she grabs a bunch of these vials of this gas and sends it to a safe house in Budapest, which is where Natasha is supposedly supposed to be staying, though in reality, like I said, she's in Norway, and one of her contacts forwards it to her inadvertently. And as this is happening in the Red Room, it elects to send out the Taskmaster. Now, Taskmaster is a character from the comics, and basically the Taskmaster, and I'm trying to be as deft as I can, we'll get into the revelations with that character, but the Taskmaster in the comics is a male who has basically super photographic memory. He can mimic the fighting styles of basically all the superheroes. He can't mimic the powers of them, but he can fight like Captain America or Daredevil or Iron Fist if he so chooses it. It's not that hard, and it sort of applies here, but it's more like a computer program that downloads into a microchip in the back of Taskmaster's skull. Anyway, Natasha figures out someone's coming after her, and that it looks like Red Room stuff, but that shouldn't be the case because she actually killed Dreykov and Dreykov's daughter as part of her defection to S.H.I.E.L.D., and that should have destroyed the Red Room. But eventually she reconnects with Yelena, who says, no, we've been here the whole time. We've been laying low the whole time, and, when you defected, Dreykov ratcheted up the mind control even more, so now it's, almost torturous to try to escape. And when, I got freed, like, you were lucky, you defected your own free will, and you got a lot of psychological deprogramming and treatment. When you're snapped out of it suddenly, you don't know what to do with your life. And it's also awkward because, they're sisters, but they're not really sisters, not biologically sisters. Again, they were part of a sleeper cell, so all that was a lie. However, after Taskmaster comes after the both of them again, and they just managed to escape, they decide, well, we have to go out and try to take down the Red Room now. And so they have to break out the Red Guardian, Alexei, from prison. And, he's in there because he, complained, he was a... the Red Guardian is basically the Soviet Captain America. He's a super soldier who claims he fought Captain America to a standstill, even though all this is said to have happened while Captain America was still frozen. However, it's sort of implied that it may have really happened, which, again, if you are familiar with the Captain America comics, there was a Captain America in the 50s who was programmed into thinking he was Steve Rogers. I believe his name was William Burnside. He was basically programmed into thinking he was Steve Rogers, and then he kind of went power mad, and it didn't end well. And so it sort of alludes that, hey, maybe that actually did happen, and the Red Guardian is not necessarily telling tall tales. But yeah, they have to break him out of prison. He was Soviet super soldier, but then he kind of mouthed off to Dreykov, even though he was a very loyal lieutenant, because he didn't like the fact that he couldn't be the Red Guardian anymore. The Soviet Union collapsed. He couldn't be a hero anymore in his suit, and he was having to go undercover as a sleeper agent, which he just found to be too boring. And this is all kind. And then from there, he directs them. He says, "Look, you need to find Melina. She probably actually knows." And they find her. Melina is Rachel Weisz's character, and Melina is on this pig farm because she's actually worked with the Red Room the whole time. And it seemed like she had just recently gotten out in some way. So from there, that kind of leads to this sort of clash they keep having, because Natasha says it was all a lie and that they weren't family, though, to Yelena, even though Red Guardian still treats them kind of like family, and Yelena even said, look, that was the best time of my life, and you're telling me that was a lie and that it was nothing. And so you kind of get more of this past trauma motif that was going in there. There's a lot of kind of PTSD that goes on. And eventually, the Red Room tracks them down because Melina had no choice but to alert them when those three arrived. But then this lays in the plan where they start to take it down by having Yelena and Natasha switch places. They put a concealing mask on, a la the Mission Impossible franchise. And that leads to this big fight on the Red Room helicarrier, because apparently they needed their own helicarrier as well. And, you know, the idea is they have to break free to gas the other Widow trainees, and there's also 50 Widow sleeper agents around the world. They need to try to locate them so that Natasha can turn the information over to S.H.I.E.L.D., because S.H.I.E.L.D. is eventually alerted to her presence and began pursuing her as well. And from there, we get the big fight, and there's some other things in there, but like I said, the action sequences are fine. They're really well done. The cast chemistry is really well done. Unfortunately, this is where the villains really start to... This is where I talk about the villains being underdeveloped. Like, Dreykov is in the movie. We get that he's not a good person, but, you know, he only has like a few lines. We get no other character development, again, other than, yeah, he was a really bad guy. He's doing all this. Dreykov is played by Ray Winstone. And it's just not doing anything. It's like, yeah, and... You know, but we don't really get enough to make him feel like a real character or a real threat. You know, we do get a bit with Taskmaster, who is revealed to actually be Dreykov's daughter, Antonia. And again, the chip that, you know, downloads the fighting styles and everything, Antonia is basically raised, you know, fighting all of this. And when Natasha finds this out, she tries to apologize because when Antonia was killed, you know, she was, you know, like 6 or 7 years old. So, yeah, that's, again, the past trauma motif coming into it. And, yeah, eventually, though, Natasha manages to hit Antonia with the gas just enough to clear her memories and realize that her father, you know, didn't really care for her either, and, you know, was just using her as a means to an end. And that's true of all the other widows at the Red Room base. So, yeah, and, you know, we get kind of a sort of happy ending. You know, the family has to break up one more time because they just don't have anywhere to get, because S.H.I.E.L.D. is showing up, and really Natasha's the only one they want. They don't want to have to bring anyone else in. So everyone else kind of goes into hiding. Yelena elects to start leading the Black Widows and helping them try to all find some sort of normalcy in life that they never had, and are now just finally given the opportunity of, including Antonia. And this will lead into a post-credit sequence, which I'll get to. And then we kind of jump ahead a few weeks later. Natasha is now blonde, and she's making her amends. She's not fully back with S.H.I.E.L.D., and she's leaving to basically break out the others so they can get to Wakanda. Yeah, so, you know, for, you know, like I said, Avengers Infinity War. And from there, it's where we get to, and then, yeah, that's when the credits roll. And then we get to the end credits scene, which is after Endgame, so Natasha is now dead. We see Yelena arrive at Natasha's grave to say goodbye, and she's suddenly joined by Contessa Valentina, you know, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character from Falcon and Winter Soldier. She's back, and she has some information on who is responsible for Natasha's death, and it's Hawkeye. So I guess that's leading into the Hawkeye series, which I don't know when exactly that's premiering. I do believe that is the next Marvel Disney Plus series to come out, so I guess now we have kind of a better sequence involved in this. And like I said, unfortunately I think that scene, the scene itself is not bad, it's just, again, clumsily paced, because it's just, you have Yelena showing up with her dog because she said she always wanted a dog since she can't have kids. And, you know, showing up at the grave and saying goodbye, and then there's this bad, like, sneeze, and you see Contessa Valentina sitting there, and you're saying, like, okay, I work for you, but, I want pay raise and stuff like that, and there's just these really bad jokes, and how she's working on this new organization. I'm guessing it's probably the Thunderbolts. I don't know. I could go into a whole history with them, but still, maybe, I'm not sure. And yeah, like I said, it doesn't quite. I don't think it quite hits the mark as well as the other post-credit scenes. And like I said, the action sequences are fine, but some of them are just a little too drawn out. I think the one at the climax is way too padded. There could have easily been like there's this whole sequence because Dreykov has this special pheromone that can prevent anyone who's been in the Red Room from ever attacking him, so, including Natasha. You know, it makes them really docile unless they, you know, which she finally manages to break because she breaks her nose completely and severs the nerve, and basically severs their sense of smell enough to delay it. And he just basically calls in all the other Black Widows, and they're only freed until when Yelena blows open a couple of vials over their heads, and it's like, okay, that's, you know, nice and all, but you know, you have this whole sequence, like, it should have happened before then, so that they could enter the room and then turn on him. Like, that's how you pace that better. And then, like I said, the whole point is, you know, the helicarrier crashes. Shock, that's what helicarriers do. Starts crashing, and you know, Dreykov we get these really long sequences of people running to get to escape copters, and it just keeps going and going. And Yelena basically kind of sacrifices herself to destroy Dreykov's copter, and you know. Then we get this sequence of Natasha racing to catch Yelena because the whole thing is falling down, and so they're falling through the air. And then that leads to a whole long sequence, and then that leads to a whole long sequence. It's like, you know, you could have really tightened that up. I thought 2.5 hours long is just way too long for this movie. I'm sorry. Especially after the 10 trailers we got. So, again, that's the problems I had with it. I think overall, though, the story was fine. The cast chemistry was great. The performances were good. I couldn't quite give it a full recommendation. That's why I'm giving it a B.
We've got to get out of here! Which way? There! Let's do it!
They needed courage. They needed skill. They needed speed and strength. But most of all, they needed...
Blast it with your repulsor! My mum's got it. What? My mum's got it.
Mum.
Are you looking for this? What would you do without me?
Smith's Toy Superstores. Superheroes and their moms in every aisle.
Okay, and like I said before, we have actual trailers to talk about this segment now, so this will be a little bit longer than usual, especially since we have quite a few trailers to go through. The first one up is Free Guy. Again, because we've been out of theaters for so long, yeah, for those of you who don't remember, this is the one with Ryan Reynolds where he's an NPC in a video game who basically gets some form of sentience, and shenanigans ensue. After that, we had Jungle Cruise. That'll be the next theatrical movie I'm going to review. Then we had Eternals, then Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and then G.I. Joe Origins Snake Eyes, which was kind of confusing because that is pretty much the exact same trailer as Shang-Chi. It's like, whoa, okay, okay, this is a different thing. Then we had The Green Knight, the retelling of the famed Arthurian story. And then we ended with Suicide Squad, or The Suicide Squad as it's now known. And I'll be reviewing that in August. So yeah, like I said, the next theatrical review I'll be doing is Jungle Cruise, then Suicide Squad, and then probably Candyman. After that, I'm not entirely sure because I'm still iffy on release schedules at this point. But still, next week is going to be kind of busy. I'm aiming to get the review of Fear Street 1978 up on Monday or Tuesday-ish, possibly Tuesday. And then Thursday will be the complete series for Loki because that final episode is airing on Wednesday. And then I also need to get work on the Hercules Full Circle Random Trade Review. And then after that, we have Money in the Bank. So, yeah, there's a lot happening. And there's some big news with WWE as well. As apparently they just announced that Bayley suffered an injury, and she's going to be out for 9 months. So that's a big loss. See you all next time. Hey guys, remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions, where you can help request a movie, even if it's something like, say, Sonic the Hedgehog or the next Purge film. I'll review it.